What's going on, traders? A few things to talk about. We're going to talk about the NASDAQ, ES, SPY, triple Qs, and then we're going to talk about a few stocks that looks pretty good for upside. Before we start, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. So first things first, we're looking at the NASDAQ daily time frame, and I want to point out how important it is to take profit within this environment, because we're seeing that we're constantly grinding towards the upside, and then towards the end of pretty much every single day, we give it all back, right? We give majority of the move back. And so if we're looking at the NASDAQ daily time frame, I urge you guys to be cautious between now 21,800 and 22,500. Now that's a pretty big range, right? 22,500 is pretty significant, right? That's basically previous highs, right? You zoom out, you look to the left on the daily time frame, you see right here that is our previous highs. But more importantly, if we manage to get between 22,000 and 22,500, I would urge caution. And the only reason I'm saying that is because if you look to the left, you're seeing a lot of consolidation within this range. You're seeing a lot of bearish candles. Cocaine bears are definitely within this area. These are demons, moose, whatever you want to call them, gorillas. They are foaming at the mouth. They are ready for some bad news to kick in. And we could easily either reject from here, or we just continue to higher, reject from there, or we just continue all the way towards previous highs, if not all-time highs, and reject from here. And I know that sounds redundant, guys, but at the end of the day, if you pay attention to how the market has been moving almost every day for the past 2 weeks, you know, you get a little bit of upside, right? You get some upside. So let's zoom in a little bit. So you get some upside, you tank, right? You get some upside, you tank. You get some upside, you tank. So it's very important to take profit when you can in this environment. For example, in the Discord, we got into APP calls, right? We look at APP, and I know I'm kind of going off topic here, but you look at APP pumped, right? We got out, we took profit at around, I want to say 402, 403, but we ended up taking profit on this play, right? And then almost maybe 30 minutes to an hour later, this thing tanks towards the downside, right? So it's very important that you take profit when you can. And if you do take profit, it's okay to leave runners, but ultimately, the point being, take profit, guys. All right, so let's get back to the NASDAQ. So your key levels, it goes without saying, as long as you stay above 21,700, you're fine, right? You want to see us break above 21,850. We break above that, then chances are we're heading towards 22K. From there, you can head as high as 22,500, minimum 22,300. Now, as far as downside goes, I think nothing else really matters until you break back below 21,500. Otherwise, to me, it's just a simple buy the dip opportunity if you manage to stay above this level. So even if we dip, let's say we dip tomorrow, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's say we dip tomorrow, I think this will be just a simple buy the dip opportunity. We head back towards the upside. All right, so as long as we stay above 21,500, I think the NASDAQ is fine. I think the overall market is fine. I wouldn't say the overall market, but the tech sector of the market is fine. So we're in a pretty decent spot. Nothing to really worry about here. Just be careful, take profit when you can. Ultimately, do what you want. When we look at the ES, again, we're in a pretty critical spot here, right? We look at the weekly time frame, right? And let's zoom out a bit. So if we look at the weekly time frame, we're in that critical area, right? We see a lot of turbulence in this area. We see a lot of bearish candles within this area. So you definitely want to be careful. Bears are foaming at the mouth. Cocaine bears, they're lining it up right now. They are lining it up. They are ready to go. So any type of bad news, I imagine anything bad that happens with China, I can't say for sure if, like, the Fed, the market cares about the Fed at this point. I imagine at some point the market is going to start caring about the Fed or what the Fed says, but right now it seems like the market doesn't really care. It's more so about what's going to happen between the US and China in regards to tariffs. So, you know, just be on the lookout in regards to news, and don't be surprised that we potentially, keyword potentially, we sell off from here. But again, you're in a very critical spot. You see a lot of turbulence in this area. You see a lot of bearish candles in this area, right? We zoom out, we are still trading within a massive rising wedge on the weekly time frame. All right, so you guys see, I'm not making this up. You bounced here, you bounced here, multiple rejections in this area right here, rejections in this area right here. So if we do, let's say we do head higher, let's say we do get a break off top, I imagine that we are heading towards the top of this rising wedge at around maybe 6,300, between 6,300 6,600. All right, pretty crazy, right? That's crazy coming, you know, coming from me, right? But very much possible that you get a break off top. This market doesn't seem to care about much of anything unless it's tariffs, right? So Something to look out for. But right now, your key levels on the ES. Let's go down to a smaller time frame. Sorry. Your key levels obviously is 6,000. Right. You're pretty much playing games here, but as long as you stay above 6,000, you're pretty good. Ultimately, I want to see a move above 6,030, and then from there, you're looking at a move towards 6,050, and then from there, 6,100. I mean, it goes without saying. So just be careful within this range. Be careful within this box. Feel free to mark it on your charts. Right. Be careful within this range. Take profit when you can. That's just me. Ultimately, you're gonna do what you want. Maybe you see something different. Maybe your analysis show you something different. But I would definitely be careful within this range, right? You guys see here, you respected this area plenty of times, right? You've been having this little roller coaster all within this area, right? So if we do break in here and manage to break back down with some decent volume below 6,000, I would say actually I would say 59.80 right about here, right? So about 59.80, you managed to, let's say we break if within this range, within this box right here, supply and demand zone, and let's say we break back down with some decent bearish volume below 59.80, I think we're going to see plenty, some decent amount of downside. So definitely be careful here. All right, so that's what we're looking at for the ES. Let's get into the SPY and triple Q. So SPY. So this is what I've been showing Discord members all day. The SPY, stocks are doing a lot of upside, right? We were seeing a few stocks, a few names pump towards the upside, and we're seeing a few names stay stagnant, right? We're seeing names like Google pump towards the upside. We're seeing even Tesla pump towards the upside, but SPY is not really cooperating with everything else. It's kind of just trading within this range, and as you guys can see, I mean, you got a massive rising wedge pattern. Not only that, but you're trading with below this zone right here, right below this zone at around 602. We'll say 602, between 602 and basically your previous highs at around 613, right? So it's very, very much possible, and this is why I'm urging caution, right? It's very much possible that we reject from here and this rising wedge starts to play out, right? Very much possible. But all day, let's go to the 4-hour time frame, but all day, from morning to close, the SPY has just been trading within this range. And so you guys see, I'm not making this stuff up. As you guys can see, we pumped towards this zone right here at around 602, and we rejected heading into close, right? So very possible that we could see more downside from here. Another scenario is that we just continue to milk this, right? We still waiting on more news in regards to the U.S. and China. The meeting is supposed to continue tomorrow, so it's very much possible that we keep doing this, right? We just keep doing this and just milking it and milking it until whatever happens happens. Maybe previous highs, all-time highs, who knows? But as you guys can see, the SPY is just really I wouldn't even say the SPY, Trump, everybody, news, they're just milking the crap out of this upside right now, right? So everything keeps getting postponed, right? Or not even postponed, but it just keeps getting pushed further out. You have a meeting one day, they don't tell us anything, and they're like, oh, we're going to tell you tomorrow. And they don't tell us the next day. So it just keeps on dragging until, the market gets to whatever point they need it to get to, I guess, right? But SPY, your key levels here goes without saying. 600, obviously your psych level, but ultimately you want to see a break above 602. You get above 602, obviously your psych level is next at around 605, and then from there you can potentially head towards previous highs, if not all-time highs. But for now, I would be very much careful, guys. This is why I'm saying you should probably take profit when you can, because as long as we're trading within this rising wedge, and it doesn't have to play out. There's plenty of times I've shown you guys plenty of scenarios where the rising wedges don't play out, right? You just break above them, and then eventually you start rolling over back into them, right? So it's very much possible that we break out of here, maybe get a blow off top. But for now, just be careful, take profit when you can. That is what I've been urging Discord members anytime they ask me a question. But ultimately, you're going to do what you want, and that's all I have, right? So if the SPY manages to break back below 592, you're going to see more downside, in my opinion. You're definitely going to see more downside. If you want to play it safe, 590 is your key level. But for now, in my opinion, as long as the SPY stays above 592, I would say bulls are pretty safe. And I think anything above 592 is basically a buying opportunity. So if we break back down towards 592, I would consider it a buying opportunity or a dip buy. But if you manage to break below 592 with decent value, right? Let's say you get a nice break below this rising wedge. I wouldn't necessarily jump the gun just yet until you break below this key level here of 592. Break, retest, boom, you're heading lower. Chances are you're just going to fill this gap at 580, and then we'll see what happens from there. So definitely, again, be careful. Can't urge that enough. All right, so that's what I'm looking at for the SPY. As long as it stays above 592, I would say we're pretty bullish. If it manages to get above 602, that's really bullish. Ultimately, if it gets above 605, you're heading towards previous highs, if not all new highs. All right, so that's what I'm looking at for the SPY. Triple Qs, you're looking at the same exact thing. You have this massive rising wedge heading right into this zone of 533, or this key level of 533. Now, what's interesting is that 533 is resistance. Let's zoom out so you guys see I'm not making this stuff up. You rejected here, you rejected here, you rejected here, you rejected here, you rejected all in this area here, right? So 533 is a key level you want to pay attention to. Above 533 is where your supply and demand zone is at around 536, between 536 and 540. So if we zoom in, right, if we zoom in on a 4-hour time frame, right, you can milk this, right? You can milk this. I mean, just like I said on the spot, you can keep on milking this, and maybe you just keep trading within. I know it looks like we're below the rising wedge, but if you look in the past, let's actually go to the 2-hour time frame so you guys can get a better idea of what I'm saying here. If you look in the past, I mean, you just keep on breaking through, breaking back down, breaking through it, breaking back down, and so it's obvious that they're dragging this out, right? It's pretty obvious that the Trump administration, whoever, is dragging this move to the upside out. They act like they don't care about the market, but I mean, we know that's not true. All right, if you believe that, then why in the world does Trump have a stock within the market, right? So, ultimately, we can just keep doing this, like I've been saying, just keep doing this over and over. Pretty annoying, right? Pretty annoying. And the reason why I'm saying it's annoying is because you get these small grinds towards the upside and then you give it all back, right? You give majority of that move back. So you have to take profit when you can. So as far as your key levels for triple Qs, goes without saying, 533. If you get above 533, chances are you're heading towards 535 psych level. Highest you can go is about 540. And then, of course, if you manage to get above that, you're looking at all-time highs. Your key levels to the downside, the main level that I will worry about is about 522 on the triple Qs. You manage to break below 522. 525 is obviously a level before that, but your level of all levels, in my opinion, is about 522, 521. So right where these guys are. All right, so right where these cycles are. All right, so right here, I mean, you see it right here. A lot of turbulence in this area. This level has been respected multiple times, right? You rejected multiple times. You bounced here, right? So 522, 521 is what I will be looking at for the triple Qs in regards to downside. You give this level up with some decent value, you're looking at some pretty. At that point, I think we're heading towards the low 500s, but we'll talk about that if we ever get there. All right, so that's the ETFs. That's the futures, guys. That's what I'm looking at right now. Actually, I want to talk about SMH. I've showed this in the Discord as well. You look at SMH daily time frame, we're in a very interesting spot. And then, of course, we're going to go over IWM. So, yeah. But if you look at SMH daily time frame, let's zoom out. I mean, it doesn't get cleaner than this, right? Either you're going to just blow through this or you're going to break down. There's one way or the other, right? So maybe you see a wick move to the upside, and that's kind of where I'm getting at with this whole blow off top thing. I don't think we're necessarily going to get a blow off top. I could be wrong, right? There's really no real way to predict that, especially when you got this type of news ahead of us, right? But my thought process is that we're gonna wick, right? We're gonna break above this. No guarantees, no promises. We break above this, and then whatever news we get, bad news we get, we're gonna wick back down. Very much a potential scenario here, right? But SMH, I mean, you see, I'm not making this up. You rejected here, you rejected here, you're back here. You're within this supply and demand zone, right? Or you're right below the supply and demand zone. You zoom out, you look to the left, you see that this zone has been respected multiple times. So you got double resistance within this area. 257 is your key level. You can also argue that this is a reversal pattern here, hammer pattern right here. So very much possible that we see some rejection back towards the downside. And remember what I said, Nvidia has a very, very, very hard time holding above 140 for longer than, I would say, max 2 weeks. All right, so definitely be careful here with SMH. Be careful with semiconductors. I'm not a fan of this where it is right now. I'm not saying we can't blow past it, but if we do manage to blow past it, I expect it to be some type of wick effect, right? We just wick above it and then we give it all back, right? So that's my thought process on it. I'm not sure if there's a major semiconductor earnings coming up. I haven't checked, but yeah, this is definitely pay attention. This is the main thing I've been paying attention to all day is SMH, nothing else, right? Obviously we did some trades, right? We hit on both of those trades, but ultimately this is the main thing I'm paying attention to because I want to see if SMH blows through this, the market most likely is heading towards previous highs. All right, so semiconductors need this, right? Semiconductors need to blow through this, and so that leads me to IWM. So crazy enough, everyone's asking me about IWM. So daily time frame. I mean, you have we don't have to say it, right? Inverse head and shoulders pattern. Where everybody sees it. All the social media sees it, right? I think it's a little bit too obvious, but trade it. Is here, okay? But when it comes to IWM, you're in the range of these guys right here. All right, you're within the range of these guys right here. Highest you could potentially go, let's if you get above 214 and hold, it actually tried to do that, but if you manage to get above 214 and hold, you're heading towards between 216 and 220. All right, 216, 220, and then from there, really tough to say because you got a lot of bears in this area, guys. But if we're talking about the measured move for this inverse head and shoulders pattern, you're talking about new highs. All right, you're talking about a move towards 250. That's the measured move for this thing. If you're new and you don't know how to measure the measured move for inverse head and shoulders patterns or head and shoulders patterns in general, all you do is measure the top of the shoulder to the bottom of the head. You bring that measurement to whatever the neckline, wherever the neckline was. I don't remember what the neckline is. I could draw it out, but I'm being lazy. 250 is basically what you're looking at for this thing. All right. Can it hit that high? It's in an environment where IWM is in an environment right now, or I should say mid caps are in small caps, mid caps, whatever, are in an environment where we could continue to pump. All right. This is an environment, ideal environment for it. Right. So very much possible we continue towards the upside, but I would be careful here. You go to the weekly time frame. You're right at the support resistance level. Okay, so you definitely want to be careful, right? So you see it right here. This was your head and shoulders pattern, and this was your neckline right here. You're retesting the neckline right now. You're at the neckline, guys. So be careful. I know a lot of people want to trade this to the upside. I will wait for a break and hold above 214. You could say 215 is your psych level, of course, and then from there, chances are you're heading towards 220. All right. So that's what I'm looking at for IWM when it comes to upside. When it comes to downside, you got a lot of gaps to the downside. I mean, you're looking at like 3 gaps now, right? One, no, two. Okay, 2 gaps. There might be some on smaller time frames, but ultimately, be careful. All right, just be careful. Take profit when you can. IWM is not a big mover or anything like that, but it pays well in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking at for IWM. And even on the 4-hour time frame, you got a much smaller inverse head and shoulders pattern. So shoulder here, head here, another shoulder here. This is kind of hideous, but it ended up playing out at the end of the day. So we'll see. All right, that's what we will see. So IWM is at resistance, right? So let's just put everything together. All right, let's put everything together. SPY, right? I showed you guys SPY. Look where SPY is. Okay, we go to the daily time frame. Look where SPY is. Top of the rising wedge, right below the supply and demand zone. Triple Qs, same thing. Top of this rising wedge has a little bit more room to the upside, right, towards previous highs, but top of the rising wedge at resistance at around 533, right? IWM at resistance at 214. SMH, I mean, SMH is probably the most cleanest one out of all of them, right? You got resistance, you got double resistance here, you got this trend here. Very much possible you reject from here at 257, okay? 257. And if we do continue to the upside, I imagine it's going to be a wick. I'm not saying it's going to like do it all in one day, right? We just pump towards the upside and wick off or anything like that. But very much possible that if we do continue towards the upside and we just manage to blow through all of this on the SPY, triple Qs, SMH, IWM, so on and so forth, that we could wick off of this. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. You guys let me know in the comments below what you think. All right. So let's talk about a few stocks. So first things first, Tesla. So Tesla is popping after hours. 306 was your key level. I missed this. I didn't catch this in time. But 306 was your key level. You broke and held above 306. You closed above it. Tesla's at 311.61 after hours. So yeah, what I will say in regards to Tesla, that's as you guys can see here, right? You bounced here, you bounced here, you bounced here, right? It looks like you're going to retest this trend line at around 316, between 320. That's where I think Tesla is going to head towards, and then we'll see what happens from there, right? But yeah, Tesla, you got the robo taxi event coming up, right? Or it might come up. You never know. Trump might ruin it, or it might get postponed. Who knows? But my thing with Tesla here is that you're looking at the weekly chart. You have this evening star pattern, right? And it looks like, and even anytime you, okay, so hear me out. Anytime you have a bearish pattern, such as engulfing bearish pattern or evening star pattern, so on and so forth, if it's depending on how big it is, pause, depending on how, big the bearish engulfing candle is, right? You eventually have to cover up part of that candle. So I think this is a move, a 50% move, where you're covering up 50% of this candle before potentially seeing more downside. I could be wrong here. I wouldn't jump the gun, of course, but what I'm saying is that I would expect a move like this. Again, Tesla can continue to pump towards the upside. I'm not saying that's not possible. What I'm saying is that once it hits 320, and if you're in calls, do what you want, but I will take profit and then look for another entry at that point. All right. My my next entry will be a break and hold above this trend line here at around 325, 330. But yeah, ultimately you do what you want. So it's very much possible that we're just covering, clearing out 50% of this because there is a massive fair value gap in this area, right? We're covering this up. We're retesting the fair value gap, and then we break back towards the downside, possibly head towards 220. All right, so that's just my thoughts. You guys do what you want. I know the robo taxi event is coming up, right? But just be careful with Tesla. Enjoy the profits. Do your thing. I'm here for you guys to make money, right? We all want to make money, right? But Tesla, overall, be careful with the overall market. I can't stress that enough, guys. All right, so another stock I want to look at is UNH. UNG, what the heck? UNH, right? So, UNH. So I'm not a fan of UNH or anything like that. Bitcoin is going crazy. What the heck? But UNH is in a interesting spot, in an interesting spot, right? You're forming. It looks like you're forming an inverse head and shoulders pattern. We traded this today. We got it to 307.5 calls. We jumped in at around 301, right? 301, 302, right? And we took some profit before close, and now we're holding runners. But UNH is in a very interesting spot. As long as it stays above, I would say 300, I think this thing is bullish. But what you really want to see here is a break and hold above 308. 308 is what I'm looking at. If UNH can get above 308, sky's the limit. I think this thing can head towards 330. Simple as that. I think it will do one of these, break, retest, boom. All right. If it gets above 308, you can head towards the 330s right here where these guys are. That's what I'm looking at. So yeah, 308. If you want to play it safe, you can say 310. But UNH has a lot of potential towards the upside. I alerted Discord members last week to jump into XLV shares. So got some defensive stocks in our portfolio now. We're currently up on XLV. Actually, I haven't checked where it is. I haven't checked my long-term portfolio because I just know it's doing well. Yeah, but we jumped into this at around 130. Right, we jumped into some shares at around 130, so I do think this thing, my first target was 135. It's very much possible this thing heads towards this gap fill all the way at 138, 140. So that's what I'm looking at for XLV. But UNH, I like UNH as long as it stays above 300. Let's go back to UNH. As long as it stays above 300, really bullish on it. Inverse head and shoulders pattern looks like it's forming here. Looking really good, guys. What you want to see again, break and hold above 308. Your neckline for this inverse head and shoulders pattern, this trend line that you guys are looking at, this is not the neckline. All right, that's just a trend. All right, your neckline is either right, it's right here. There you go. So that's what you want to see. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This thing will take off if you get above 308, guys. So that's what you want to see when it comes to UNH. All right, so another stock that's in an interesting spot is Meta. Meta has potential for a little bit more upside, but you're heading towards a very, very critical area, guys. Once again, we look at the weekly time frame here. As you guys can see, you're bouncing off this trend. Well, you bounced off this trend. You broke through it. You retested this trend right here, and you're heading back towards this area all over again. If you look at the weekly time frame, again, you're really close to supply and demand zone at around 715. Highest you could be looking at is about 730, 740. We can say 750 because that's a psych level, but yeah, Meta, very, very interesting spot. Be careful with this thing. I mean, if you look at a lot of stocks, if you look at the overall market and a lot of these big names, they're at walls. They're not like at regular walls. They're like major, major walls. Either they're fair value gaps, right? They're major supply and demand zones, like weekly, daily supply and demand zones, or they're at major trends, or they're at all of those all at once. So you really, like, really, this is why I'm saying be careful, guys. Really be careful here, okay? Can we get a blow off top? Yes, but you need to wait for confirmation for that. All right, do what you want. Nvidia, I mean, I can't stress this enough. Nvidia just sucks when it comes to holding 140. Right? It's above it. Right? It's above it, but it's not getting anywhere. It's not getting anywhere. Okay, so as you guys can see, once again, when you're looking at Nvidia, like I said, with SMH, Nvidia, it's all hopefully it's all adding up, right? It's all adding up. You look at SMH, you look at Nvidia, you look at SPY, you look at triple Qs, they're all at critical spots. All right. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not trying to force the downside or anything like that. It will be great, but ultimately when you're looking at a lot of these big names, either we have to just blow through this, and I'm guessing the China news will be the news that helps us blow through all of this and get some type of blow off top scenario, or we start rejecting soon. Another scenario is we just consolidate towards the upside because that's what's been happening lately. We just slowly grind towards the upside and give it all back towards the end of the day. But ultimately, guys, I mean, you see it here, right? You see it here. You're right at this area. As you guys can see, we rejected this area. Bears are definitely within this range. These psycho Pomeranians biting ankles right now, trying to bite your ankles off. All right, you're doing well. All right, you're dragging a little thing around, but if this keeps going, somebody's ankles is going to get broken. All right, so that's what I'm looking at for Nvidia. You're at a critical spot here. Your key level, obviously 140 to the downside, 145 to the upside. All right, so that's what I'm looking at. All right, VIX, critical spot as well. Very surprised by the VIX. I thought it was weird that it gapped up and the market barely moved, but whatever. It gapped up pre-market from 16.8 to 17, and it's back above 17. As long as the VIX stays above 17, you should be cautious buying calls. If the VIX manages to get above 17.5, you should be very much careful. All right, you should be very, very careful. What we saw happen today with the VIX is it simply filled this gap towards the downside. It gapped towards the upside pre-market, went back down, filled this gap. Now it's recovering back towards the upside. I tell you guys all the time, gaps have very strong support and resistance. So be careful with the VIX. Be careful with the overall market in general, guys. All right, so main things that I'm looking at right now for upside or potential upside is simply UNH. I think AMD has very, very, very strong potential, but I can't say for certain if AMD is going to follow the market, right? Because when AMD originally tanked, like tanked, it wasn't following the market, right? But AMD looks solid. All right, I can't lie to you guys. It looks really, really good here. What you want to see AMD do is get above 123, 125 psych level, if you want to count that, right? This is what you want to see. You want to see AMD break, retest, boom, you're heading towards 130. All right. But AMD looks really, really good. It's just a matter of, is it following the market or not? I can't say for sure. You got a beautiful inverse head and shoulders pattern. I guess it's not that beautiful. You got a nice double bottom right here. You broke the neckline of the double bottom. So AMD is looking really, really clean, guys. You want to wait for that 123 break, in my opinion. Do what you want with this information. Highest the thing can go is 130. I mean, obviously, it can head much higher than that, given the conditions of the market. We'll see. Apple still consolidating. I got nothing for you guys. It just keeps bouncing between 205 and 200. Not much to talk about here. And then Bitcoin, last but not least, Bitcoin. This thing is. If Bitcoin breaks previous highs, guys, I mean you're looking at 120s, 120K at this point. All right, so Bitcoin's pumping. This thing is pumping like crazy. I'm really surprised that it managed to hold 102K because it gave it up, and then I figured it was going to stop hunt and then break back down. Didn't happen. But Bitcoin, what you want to watch here is 112K. This thing gets above 112K. Sky is the limit. Pack your bags. You're going to Jupiter. Go ahead, grab you some fruit snacks. Grab the dog. Leave the kids. Leave the wife. Leave the husband. Whoever. Whatever you're into. lead the horse. I don't know what you guys are into. Some of you are weird. All right, but ultimately that's what I'm looking at. 112K is what you want to see on Bitcoin. 107K towards the downside, 112K towards the upside. All right, so that's what we're looking at for Bitcoin. This thing is still going. Wow. Wow. So let me know what you guys think about Bitcoin. I'm not tracking what's going on. I'm not tracking what news came out or anything like that. So let me know what you guys think about Bitcoin. Let me know what you guys think about Tesla. Let me know what you guys think about the overall market in general in the comments below. And until the next video, traders, have a good one.